hello. I'd like to take this opportunity to welcome you to Are You Okay broadcast. Well, let's talk about it. And tonight we are sponsored by Seven Keys to a Mother's Heart Ministry. My name is Dr. Alethea Simmons, and I will be your host for tonight's broadcast. I'm so excited tonight. I have four panelists that are going to be joining us. And our topic tonight is the pandemic and how it may be affecting our children. So before we start off with our topic, I want to just go back just a little bit and let me introduce myself to you. I'm Dr. Alethea Simmons, and I'll be your host for tonight's broadcast. Well, those of you all that have been following us along, you may recall that I mentioned that when we started off just last month, I mentioned that I had conducted a survey and had gotten back almost 100 responses of potential topics that folks were interested in. And I tell you, it has really just been so interesting because we have been having panel discussions centered around issues that we face generationally around our country. So, as I mentioned, we had almost 100 topics, and thus far we talked about our relationship with God and how to hear His voice and God's purpose for us, especially as it relates to our 2021 year that we're in now. And our last session was centered around virtual education. And we were honored to have several teachers that came on that talked about their experience during this virtual education process that we have been experiencing over the past year. Another one of the topics that I received a lot of response about and questions and interest in was dealing with our children and the impact that this pandemic, COVID-19, is having on our children. Not only our children, but parents, society in general. But tonight, we want to focus on the impact, if there is any, as it relates to our children. Now we know that we're in a year anniversary. We've been in this pandemic for going into our 13th month now, and the schools shut down instantaneously. I think they gave us maybe about a 2-day notice that the schools would shut down. Our cities shut down. We've been quarantined in the house, stores shut down. You all know what we've been through. And then in the midst of that, and then unfortunately, so many lives have been lost due to the virus. But in the midst of that, sometime in the latter part of the spring, we had tremendous deaths through Breonna Taylor and George Floyd, and the whole country, in fact, the whole globe was in an uproar as it related to that and Black lives, and people just started coming together from everywhere protesting and speaking out about different racism topics and issues. And then in November we had the elections. So we was in a tense seat with the elections and who was going to win. And then, of course, we knew that they went through a elongated thing in terms of who was going to be the person that was finally affirmed. And then we had the uproar and the disturbance at the Capitol. And then now we're in the midst of folks trying to get this vaccine. So all of this has been going on during this pandemic season, if you will, that we've been in. And certainly, I don't know. I'm curious to hear what our panelists are going to say as relates to this subject. And so let me introduce them real quick, and then I'm going to throw out a question and let them go for it. But we're going to start, as I see us reflected here on the screen here. We have Neville Adams, and Neville, Mr. Adams, is a public school, Prince George's County teacher, English teacher, 12th grade. And that's that age of transition into a whole new arena. And so he's been teaching, as I said, for 26 years and really has a tight and close relationship with students that he works with and students down through the years. Let's wait. Hey, Mr. Adams, welcome. Thank you for joining us. We also have Minister James Durham. And Minister Durham has been also working with young people and children down through the years. He is a minister and the director of family life at Mount Enon Baptist Church, also located in Prince George's County. Welcome, Minister Durham. Thank you for joining us tonight. And we're so honored we have a student, a 12th grade student, and she is the president of the Student Government Association. And I'm going to pray that I don't mess up her name, Jumoke Oni. I got the last name right, correct? I think I lost her. Oni, but welcome. I'll bring her back in. And by audio, we also have Mrs. Malvolia Gregory, and she actually is a retired, certified, licensed school counselor, but is presently working as a certified marriage and family therapist. So welcome, Mrs. Gregory. Thank you for joining us on tonight.
Thank you for your invitation.
Thank you. And okay, so now I'm going to throw this question out to our panelists on tonight. And before I do that, can you all push the share button, also push like for us? And could you also subscribe to Dr. Lethea Simmons' YouTube channel? Thank you. I really do appreciate it. Okay. Well, our question, we're going to start off tonight with this question. And the question is, our topic, the pandemic. And how do you think, if at all, that it is affecting our children?
Okay, it's definitely affecting them in a number of ways. Of course, the same way that it's affecting us, except I think it's a little bit more magnified because they're, of course, younger, and this is something that's they're experiencing that is new to them. Of course, I feel like they're a lot more isolated. They're missing a lot of the core events, rites of passage, so to speak, during this time. And it is definitely, keeping them from being able to socialize that they would normally, the way that they would normally be able to do.
Okay. Anybody want to pick up?
Yeah, I'll pick up. So, and you can go ahead, Jamoke. You can go ahead.
Okay, so I was just gonna agree with Mr. Adams in terms of the social aspect. I definitely feel like it has deprived our generation, and you'll definitely see the effects of it in like long term. Nonetheless, I do feel as though like we will have we will be able to compensate for that deprivate for the deprive of our social aspect in terms of like just how we've been able to like social media, and we've been able to really find ways to make up for not physically being able to be with each other. So like I mean, we've always been really tech savvy, but now it's like even more to our benefit. So like I said, like yeah, like we're gonna have that we're like other generations are gonna have that up against us, but when it comes to like just being tech savvy and all that stuff, we're gonna have that to kind of compensate for what we are being deprived deprived of.
Okay.
So I can jump in next. I wanted the expert to talk because Jamoke would be the expert on this particular topic. But in many of the young folk or the youth that I've spoken with, I've seen a range of responses, a range of emotions. I've seen some up, some down. I've seen the same people be up sometimes and down sometimes. Um, I think Neville mentioned that they missed some of the rites of passage. Like I know a number of college students who were quite disappointed that they were unable to pledge for certain fraternities, sororities, things of that nature. Of course, folks miss prom and homecoming, things like that. But in missing out, some folk that I've spoken to, some young folk, they said they finally got to see themselves and learn themselves because they're so used to being around other individuals, always talking to someone, whether it be in person or interacting with someone on social media or what have you. When they get that time alone in in their room, in their home by themselves, they get to know who they are. They get to really figure out, what do I like? Not necessarily what my group is into right now, and I'm just jumping on board because that's what the group is talking about. That's what we're discussing right now. But what do I actually like? So it's been good in some ways, I think. And one of the things that I see that maybe a lot of the youth are not recognizing is building their muscles right now. It's building their strength and their endurance right now. So you miss out on some things, or you can't do things the way you used to, but that causes your creativity to kick in, and you got to look at different ways of entertaining yourself or different ways of hanging out with your friends. So that's just a little bit. So I don't want to take up all of the time. It's a whole lot of other observations that I have, but definitely want to, just lift up those few items for now.
Exactly. And if I can jump in, I think we have seen the creativity of our young people. We have seen the entrepreneurship. And so while all of those things are positive, there are some young people and some teens who do not handle and cannot handle the challenges of this pandemic. And that's when we come in. That's when they come to us, when they have the stresses are more than they can handle. The stresses are more than parents can handle. And parents have gotten to know kids. I think Pastor Durham said that they have gotten to know themselves, but the parents have gotten reacquainted with their children. Children have gotten reacquainted with their parents. And so I think some of the things that we share with parents during this time, some of the things that they can do in that getting reacquainted. You are the expert on your child. You've been going out to work. Your children have been going to school. You've been coming home just to get dinner. They go to bed. You go to bed. So the time together has been very minimal, but now that has been maximized. And so you're really getting to know one another. So being aware of your child's behaviors and emotions is critical. Older children tend to have different stressors than young children, but parents have to know their children. They have to build that trust. They have to be available, open to talk when the children are ready, not just when parents want to talk, but when they're children. Encourage them to express their feelings. Encourage them to have healthy and diverse friendships, and select appropriate activities. That social media can be a blessing or a curse. So you have to be very aware, very familiar with what your children are doing. Just be aware. If you keep your children in the loop. If you know that you're about to experience some financial changes because of the pandemic, if you've lost your job, if your home is on the line, if you're going to lose your car, if your living conditions are going to change, try to just keep your children aware of those anticipated family changes. That's critical. And you've got to teach and model some good emotional responses because they are watching you. If you are anxious, if you are nervous, if you are fearful, they are going to, especially younger children, they're going to pick up on that. And you've got to monitor your own stress level. Take care of yourself. So, while most children kind of experience some mild or intermittent symptoms, just such as eating less, trouble sleeping, more irritable. But if your children have more difficulty adjusting to these changes, then that's when you can call us, you can call the school counselor, you can call your primary care physician. And if, with everything being virtual now, your doctor can definitely, you can just call them up, talk to them, let them know some of the things that you're seeing, but you have to know your children. You are the expert on your child. So those are just some of the things I think that parents can do, and just to be more aware of their children and what they're going through.
Okay, so here we are. We have we've heard in some responses from the different generational groups, our older students, high school, middle school students, as well as our elementary school students. And I know that Mr. Adams and Minister Durham, you are both parents. We have two grandparents on the line here. I know that virtually I was working with my grandson and his brother, and for 5 months. I'm not doing it, haven't done it in about a month or so now. But just watching them try to adjust to just this whole virtual education thing. And academically, I found that they were doing pretty good. But socially, there were a lot of challenges socially that I, observed and experienced. And along with them, I was tripping out. So, I mean, I may have been tripping out more than they were. And I've been in this education thing for over 40 years. And, I've seen some positive things as well as some negative things. So you want to hit on, even as a parent, as well as the different professional groups that you're in. I'm not sure if Miss Oni, Miss Oni, do you have any younger sisters and brothers at home?
My mother actually runs a daycare, so
Oh my
and on top
goodness.
of having younger siblings, yes.
Because when we had, I'm just say this one thing, when we had our last panel discussion, we had educators on that had started working, that were actually working with 3-year-olds. We had preschool all the way up to high school teachers on the last session that we did. And so they were able to talk about the dynamics from all of the groups. So what have you noticed, Miss Oni, even in your home as your mother's working with daycare students? Any of them a school age, or are they, what age range are they?
So we have some toddlers all the way up until about maybe third grade. We don't have too many older students, and my mother definitely has to be a lot more attentive to the school age because it's very easy for you'll see some of them just sleeping and others playing while they're in class. So she definitely has to divide her attention between all of the students just to ensure that ultimately she's ensuring that they're being proficient. As for me, I also help assist with that, especially because I have a half day, so it's a lot easier for me to just knock my 2 classes out and then assist her, especially my little brother as well. He is a bit more independent though, so she doesn't have to really worry too much about him. I feel like online school, you really get to identify those students who are a bit more independent as opposed to those who they just kind of need more of a push. So it really differentiates the two. And those who are able to be independent, those are the ones you see doing a little better. I know for me personally, I've always kind of just been independent. So I want to say I thrive with when it comes to virtual school, with the exception of pre-calculus, but that's just because I'm not a math person. So that's inevitable for me. But yeah, so it all just kind of comes down to the type of person you are. If you're someone who, you can be independent, then you really shouldn't struggle with virtual school. But if you're more of a hands-on learner, then I know it's something that it's a struggle for those type of students.
Okay. Mr. Adams, I know you have two younger daughters.
Yes. Hmm.
How's it working out with them?
It's you I have to be more because I'm a really a hands-on person, and I'm normally into doing a lot of activities and things, and that gives that lends this whole idea of the pandemic where we're sort of pushed indoors, but at the same time that we do have uh, freedom to at least explore like nature. So it's been a thing of me being more creative with finding different ways to expose them to things that they haven't been used to, and to enjoy it with more than just sitting on a computer like they used to. And I'm finding that they tend to uh, want to get away from the computer now. Now that it's more or less they're on the computer all the time. But before you would have to try to pry them away from the computer. But now they're like, oh, I don't really want to be on there. So you have to come up with different things to entertain them. And I have to find myself to be more probing, because I have one who's more emotional, more gregarious, more outgoing, and speaking about the feelings that they have. And then I have one who's more subtle. She's more quiet, and I'm feeling I have to find it out. I have to be more probing to see how this is affecting them and the things they're thinking. Because I could just tell you just one thing. I don't want to be too long, but we had a social distance party with people who we did it, everybody tested and all of that stuff, and they hadn't been within. I mean, they hadn't seen another kid for like 9-10 months. Mm-hmm. And we took them to this outside in the field, and they were standing like across from each other looking, and they couldn't get any closer than that, but they were just standing there looking. And we were like, oh my God, like this is like a moment that, and they didn't know what to do. Mm-hmm. They hadn't seen them in so long that they just, so they're really, working through it. And I mean, I commend them for being adaptable, because as we would consider them to be in this generation, we would say that because we were outside playing all the time anyway. We didn't have all of these sources to, computers and things like that, but they have been pretty adaptable in terms of coming around.
Wow. Okay. Minister Durham, I know you have a daughter. Is she still school age?
My daughter is in her sophomore year in college.
Oh, okay. So, that's a whole nother dynamics there.
It is, but it's still interesting. So she came home. She was in her second semester of her freshman year when the pandemic hit. So she came home. And my daughter's always been an excellent student, great grades and involved in extracurricular activities. So she kind of struggled initially with staying focused on with the classes online or what have you. And as Neville said, you have to ask probing questions, because you just can't say, how's class going? How are things? Are you on top of your schoolwork? Because it's automatically going to be yes. But you ask probing questions. You have to be very specific, and then you can find out what's really going on. So after it took her some time to adjust, and she got better, thank God, as the semester went on. And this year has been much better. She had to learn, as Jamoke was talking about being independent, she had to learn time management. She had to learn how to plan her day, how to schedule time for studying, because she was still engaged with organizations that she was involved in at her college, still engaged with different friends, different pockets of friends, and then she at home so she can catch up on all these TV shows. When she was in on campus, she wasn't watching much TV, but when she came back home, she was watching more TV. So she had to learn time management. And as a parent of someone, she's now 20, you don't want to treat them like a child. You want to give them their space and allow them to grow and be their own independent young adult self, but you still want to guide them. And so, that's a space that we both were managing, my wife and I and our daughter. So not being too invasive and too controlling, but to make sure she was doing what she needed to do. Another thing I want to say just about the parenting process, and Malvolia hit on this. She dropped so many gems. One of the gems she dropped was getting to know the people that you live with. I don't know about you all, but when the country first shut down, I was like, yay, we got a little bit of time off. We get a few days off. And I was thinking, we might gonna be in this for 3 weeks to a month. Oh, I got a free vacation. So I'm excited. But as we look around, it's 1 month, 2 months, 3 months. And so then we like, hey, who are you? I got this person here. Hi, nice to meet you. So I call that a get to know you period, because I don't care how close you were with the people in your home. You got to know them a little bit more. You got to see them a lot more. So it was a get to know you period. And we have to be very intentional to get to know, particularly for parents, to our children, because as Neville was saying, he looks at one of his children and they're gregarious and the other person is more reticent. So he got to figure out how to engage them to get out of them, what's needed for the moment. So we have to be very intentional to get to know our children. And it cannot be the typical parent to child talk. Oh, you're going to tell me what's going on, you're under my roof and so on and so forth. No, we have to create different dynamics to our relationships. I guess I'm more progressive when it comes to parenting, because I don't think it should always be authoritative figure to child. I think sometimes you have to meet them where they are. Sometimes you have to be friends. Sometimes you have to be counselors. Sometimes you have to be the person to give them correction. And so in order to do that, you have to pay attention to them, and you have to see, because you can see changes in the behavior, and that usually is a sign of something.
All right. Especially Neville, by you being a classroom teacher, have you observed any of your students that were having a really, or have been having a really, really difficult time adjusting to, virtual education?
A good number of them have been having a time adjusting. It's sort of tapering out a little bit more, but for the beginning, of course, because of the setup virtually is where in general you would have more access to the person, so they would have more access to me. You can come to me and say, hey, can I talk to you after class? Or if something's going on with you while we're in the class, I'm like, okay, you all work on this, and I take you out and I'm talking to you there. It's everything is done in front of everybody in this setting. And so you have a lot of students, I think more so, who have just withdrawn, where at the beginning, we were pushing towards having everybody on camera. You can have a whole class and you're the only person on camera and you're talking to people. Like I have students that I don't know what they look like. If I saw them in the store, so this is going to be a year of, so we're talking about 250 to 300 kids that I've stood in front of. They know me, but I don't know them.
Wow.
But what I was talking to them about the other day was, I was like, it's a learning thing for all of us, because I've never had a relationship with someone through their voice. And I said, but it's funny. I can feel some of them through the way that we have been speaking, and we know each other like that, but not by, I don't know them by sight. So it does kind of activate different parts of your brain, and it has. And I've noticed that they you some of them have been I push them to use their resources if there's if it's to the point where you definitely need help uh, beyond just what I can do for you. Reach out to the people who are next to you, and we also work with the parents as well in terms of giving them some of the expertise that we have, because we're used to doing it with them, because we've been sort of we're that escape for a lot of those students, because some students used to stay in school till late, and be in our classes, because some of them didn't. It's not that they didn't want to go home because something. Well, some of them might have not want to go home because of things that are going on, but some of them just want to be away from their parents. They want to, because they're growing. Because that's what we're doing. We're pushing them towards being independent. And when they don't have that, they're in that house with them all day long. And we're working with even parents to just like Dr. Durham said, is that we're working with them to becoming more progressive in their thinking in terms of how to deal with your with your children.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Dr. Simmons, can I ask a quick question?
You certainly may.
Because I've thought about this, and Neville just touched on it. So one of what I believe, and I share this with a lot of the high school students that I work with, probably, if not the most important lesson you'll learn in high school, one of the most important lessons you'll learn in high school is relationship building, particularly as you build relationships with the teachers and the administrators. So, and in school, in person, you have that space, as he said, to step outside and talk to them. And because really for high school students, the cool teacher is the one that helps them and give them the wisdom and to help them to face and navigate challenging situations. So what I want to ask Neville is there a way, how are you all managing that challenge to be able to provide that space to develop those relationships? Because as you just mentioned, you're standing in front of so many students that you don't even know what they look like. So how are you managing, how are you handling that challenge?
It is extremely hard, my brother. It is extremely hard, because a lot of what I do is by looking in your eyes. A lot of what I do is by, I detect things like, because a lot of times they don't say what they're feeling. And I'm like, okay, well, no, you come over here. I'm going to talk to you because I can sense something is going on with you. And if I can't see you, sometimes I can hear it in your voice, and it's hard to, and then the only way that I could, that we could reach out and talk to you, you have to be receptive to it, because I can say, hey, meet me on, because like on Wednesdays, we have like small group where you can do things like that. I could say, meet me on Wednesday. And if you don't show up, there's nothing, that's not pretty much that I can do. And so just trying to reach out, because Jamoke can definitely tell you that we deal with a lot of the spirit in the school. So we make all kind of activities. We have like open mics. We have game nights and things like that. Yeah, right. And we push hard to try to give them different avenues to be able to, navigate the system, but we don't get the turnout that we want to, that we would like. And and we know that there are people out there hurting, and we're like, we know you're hurting, come to us, or come to somebody. Don't just suffer in silence.
Well, that's really interesting, because a lot of the skills that you're speaking of are skills that are employed even down to the elementary school level too as well. And where students are developing relationships outside of the academic, but socially and behaviorally with teachers and other staff members in the school too as well. And I have found that I have been able to, really connect with a lot of students. I can tell I've been working with them for a group of students for so long that I can tell when there's something going on with them, and they've seen me around enough that they begin to, share their heart in terms of what's going on. And it's that connection there that they may not necessarily have at home or have with any place else. And it's interesting too as well, where a lot of them tend to just talk to one another. So they're talking and they're sharing with one another. And I want to pose a question to Miss Oni, and that is, with your relationships, especially in the position that you have being president of SDA. So I'm sure you've got to know a lot of students in the school. How have you observed or been connected to students that have just not been able to get in tune with this virtual education structure now?
So, I mean, I feel like there's only but so much you can do because, we are peers. So it's kind of like you have to meet your peer halfway. It's kind of like halfway type of situation. Nonetheless, kind of just encouraging them, kind of just, reminding them like times are temporary, like it's not going to be like this forever. Kind of just like Mr. Adams recognizes, like informing them on that, even if they don't necessarily want to, take advantage of it. I'm still going to ensure that like they know like it's available to them. So just doing different things of that sort, staying connected despite whether they want to, they're responsive or not, just ensuring that they know that like they're not alone, and we're all, we all have mixed emotions throughout this unprecedented time, but we just have to remember that we have to stick together. So, yeah.
Okay. Well, we have a listening audience out there, and we've received some comments in, and just wanted to open it up to you. If you have any questions that you want to pose to any of our panelists, please write them under the comment section. Thank you. Please push like, and please push share, and you push love if you want to. Thank you for joining us. So now, have you all seen any students or just children, maybe even your own children, that you feel are panning better, or are performing better under this virtual education and during this pandemic period?
That's yes. Oh, I'm sorry. You can go ahead, Mavo.
No, you go ahead.
So a number of students that I know were, let's just be honest, mediocre in terms of their grades. I have been pleasantly surprised to hear of better grades now, and even honor roll. And what has changed for them is that a lot of the noise has been removed, right? And I'm not going to preach, but I will just veer here for one moment. Like, God put all of us on timeout. Like, okay, you go, you sit down, and you create a still space. I'm gonna create this still space for you, and you do whatever. You take advantage of this the best you can. And I was so pleased to see a number of students that I know that were struggling in school in person to take advantage. And talking to them, what I've heard is that they've been given this space that they can now focus, and their focus is not so many places. I know last year, I don't know about this year in the schools about sports, but last year there was no sports. Those who were on teams, they didn't have practice to go to and working out and all of that. So they just had time to focus. And kudos to those in their household or those who are in their circle to encourage them to use that time to focus on the schoolwork. But what I've seen is that their level of focus increased, and that helped their grades to get better.
Okay.
And if I can also add, I think as therapists, just in talking to some of my colleagues, I'm finding that children, because everything is virtual, they're in their own space. They're in their bedrooms. They're in their home where they're comfortable. They can show us their toys. They show us around their room. And so I think that is one thing I think that has contributed to their just being relaxed, not as intimidated coming into our offices, just a lot more comfortable. So I think there's a lot there just in terms of that, just that connection there. And when you were talking about how do we, yeah, we can't really look them in the eye. They can look away. They can put on mute. They can turn us off whenever whenever they want to. But I think Neville talked about our senses that are sharpened. And you, Dr. Simmons, talked about those kids who come to you on the elementary level because they know about how much you care and you're concerned. So I think there's some senses that have been heightened or sharpened. Our sense of feeling, our sense of just kind of understanding body language, looking at different kinds of behaviors that we maybe didn't see before, but we're forced to look at differently now. So, I think there are a lot of positives just in terms of the changes.
All right. Let me stop real quick here. Miss Johnson said, and she teaches, she is also, I believe she teaches middle school, I think she teaches middle school, either middle school or high school. But her comment was, I've seen some students perform better too. Exactly, Mr. Adams. And also, she said that I've seen teachers more focused because they're not dealing with behavior. And that's one of the things I noticed too. You don't have, because sometimes, especially on the elementary school level, Neville, you may not have you probably have total control in your classroom, but on the elementary school level, sometimes it may take you 15, 20 minutes just to get the class together, to get them focused on, on whatever the task is that's before them. So you don't have all of those outside distractions like you used to. And even for the children too, you don't have the bullying as much. I didn't think you had the bullying until I saw my grandson and they were bullying over the computer. I was shocked about that and then of course, I had to bust in and say something. But that kind of surprised me. Miss Johnson is a high school instructional coordinator. Okay, thank you. Okay, so what do you do with students that, let me come back. Are there students that have not connected at all?
Oh yeah, yeah. Mm-hmm.
What happens?
Yeah.
I mean, they've not
I feel like it's
connected
really easy.
at all. So what,
You have to. Well, we're constantly reaching out. We go through we have to go through more actually than we normally have to. But you reach out through. We reach out through email, through text message, through phone calls. We even go to their house, and to see what's going on. But
you going to houses now during the pandemic? You've been to houses during the pandemic?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Go ahead. I love it.
Sure. Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
What do you find when you go to the houses? Is that too personal?
No, they're doing the same thing that everybody else is doing. A lot of times it's a lot of times you find that they have been sort of isolating themselves. I've gone and found out from the parent because I didn't hear from the parent because they're working all the time, and
Right.
and a lot of them aren't tech savvy, where they weren't getting messages and things like that. So, and when I've gone out to them and I've saw them, spoke with them, and then they will tell me that some of them have told me that their kids are hurting in a different way, because some of them have that isolation has been too much for them, and so I give them resources to help with what they can do. But and then otherwise you find some of them have some of the students work, They work jobs. And because of the pandemic, with it being closed and with you being on the computer, they can shut their screen down and be working at Wendy's.
That easy.
Okay, and so they just no school. I mean, it's not like they're working and doing classwork at the same time. No.
Yeah. Because when you think about it, some students, even when you're in school, they don't really want to be confined and to sit there and some students we chase in the building, and if we're not chasing them, they're on their own, some of them, and it's not that many of them.
Okay.
Those are the few, but and they need different types of support, and so that's why like now that we're back in the building actually, and within the next about a month they'll be in the building, and and it's going to be a limited amount that'll be in the building, but for the most part I know the ones that will be in the building, some of them are those ones that need just. And although we're not going to be interacting with them the way that they're used to, because we'll still be in the computer. Although they're sitting in the same room with us, they're going to be in the computer and we're going to be in the computer.
Oh,
but some people just need that energy, maybe that's close by.
Yeah, or just to be able to come out of the house.
Right.
And the parent trying to get them out of the houses.
Yes.
Okay, let me ask another question. Our time is almost up. That's what happens when you have, everybody's saying great conversation and good points. And if you have any questions out there, please put your questions in the comments, and please push like and share. When do you identify that a student or even maybe your child, there are signs of stress? I don't know, Malvo, you want to hit that?
Well, I think
what are some indicators that there's some signs, indicators of signs of stress?
Sure. I think I just heard Neville talk about that isolation. When sometimes kids are withdrawn or they're disengaged from their friends or even their family activities that they used to really like. They don't do those anymore. They're withdrawn from that. They might become quieter or just more inactive. Their moods, their behavior changes. Now, some of them are moody anyway. But again, if you know your child, then you know those changes that can vary. Some of them have increased aches and pains and body aches because they're upset about this pandemic. Am I going to get sick? Am I going to die? My grandmother died. My uncle died. There's all these deaths. And, then they start every minute. They've got to take their temperature, or they've got to, look at me. Am I sick? Am I, when there are things like that are overly done that they don't typically do, or they stop eating, or they eat less, or just the opposite. They eat more. They overeat. And so, they're just, for little kids, for instance, we have little kids who've regressed. They're very well potty trained, but they regress. They start bedwetting. They want to get up and get in bed with their parents at night. They're afraid to sleep by themselves. They can't sleep. So those are some of the kinds of things that parents really need to be aware of and look out for.
Can I jump in there real quick? And I'll just say exactly that. What you want to look for is change in their behavior. But what's going to help you notice the change in their behavior is that you have to be in tune with them beforehand. Like if you don't know them, you're not going to know that.
Wait, no, beforehand. Go ahead.
Yes. So and with that, because really all of the kids, all of the youth, everybody, not just youth, but everyone is going to have some kind of reaction to what's going on. And
Absolutely.
so if we have not been doing this already, what we need to do is make sure that we are teaching these youths to develop a healthy relationship with their emotions. Because a lot of times humans, and this is adults too, not just young folk, but we experience some emotions and we're like, whoa, what's that? I don't want that. We run away from it, but we cannot and should not run away from our emotions. We should learn from our emotions. And part of the healthy relationship with emotions, I like to tell people to let it live. You have to experience the emotion, like even the negative emotions. Like God gave us all of our emotions and He gave them all to us for a reason. We can learn from our anger. We can learn from our embarrassment. We can learn from, the joy. We can learn from all emotions. So we have to be able to experience the emotion and go through the process. And then in the midst of going through the process, be looking forward so that we can get better after we're done with the process.
Wow. I mean, you really mentioned some key points. And, a lot of this should have happened beforehand in terms of relationship. So, in many instances, parents are just beginning to even see their kids. A lot of parents don't see their kids even during the day because they leave out early and then they come home late. And so now some think that they're being forced at home to now have to deal with parenting. And, those are some, aspects that they really never experienced prior. Okay. Any other comments? I did get a question here. What is the best approach for children with autism during the pandemic without getting too detailed?
I would leave that to Malvoya. Maybe she could speak to
Well,
that.
actually, that's we don't we do a lot with what we call theraplay, which is just play therapy, but it's therapy where children work with parents. And so I think Neville mentioned working with parents and showing them how to do some of the things that would benefit and support their child. So we do a lot of parent-child work, and this is done on video. The parents will have a little toolbox, or will make recommendations of things that they can have handy, and they actually work with their child. And so, but it's challenging. The attention spans are very short. The focus is very, low. But there are activities that we can do with parent help and with parent support to work with those children.
Okay, let me throw this question out because this was part of the survey real quick, and we don't have much time left. But what can parents do to protect the innocence from what lies ahead for our children once they get back into socialization?
Well, I would say I would say the best thing parents can always do is shower your children with love. Because when you give them love and support at home, that helps to build their confidence. Don't shower them with love by putting them in a bubble and not exposing them to anything. We have to allow them to gain their independence, because when they go out, just do your best to teach them how to make good decisions so that when they are facing the world and you're not around, and just trust that they'll make the best decision that they can. And even if they don't, when they come back, don't overreact, don't beat them down, talk about it, and talk about how they can make some adjustments and do differently the next time. But it starts with love.
Okay. All
Teach,
right.
teach your children to problem solve.
Well, we got to learn it, right? I'm sorry. Go ahead. Thank you. Excuse me. Miss Oni, from a student standpoint, what do you think parents can do to protect the innocence of their children once they go
I
back,
agree with
of students?
Dr. I, I agree with everything that Doctor said. Because I know, like, I personally have a very strict mother, and that doesn't give me a little confidence. When she's constantly just overreacting and trying to isolate me from the world. Like, I'm 18, like it's inevitable. I'm gonna have to face the world sometime. And then seeing this whole, like, considering the factor of how life suddenly changed, because of course, the strive is to get some type of normality back, but it will never be what we once knew. So, that adjustment there is definitely something that, like, we all as people from young souls is gonna have to adapt, and just being there for each other, and just kind of just communicating and ensuring that everyone is just on the same page in terms of that love and in terms of that support is really what will allow the success of all of us, really.
Okay. Let me throw out one more question because we only have a couple minutes left. How are we going to be allowed to? One of the students asked their mom, and I think she's probably around 7 or 8 years old, but after the disturbance, at the Capitol, she wanted to know, how are we going to be allowed to grow up when they're destroying everything? How are we going to live?
Wow. So one, you're going to live just so humans are strong individuals. We can adapt. We're flexible. We might expect the world to look one way, but if it changes, we adapt and we use our creativity and our mind, and we just work with what's there. So what I would say is to start by looking back and get some takeaways. Okay, well, what are the lessons to be learned? Because everything you go through, there's some lessons to be learned. So particularly with that situation with the insurrection at the Capitol, okay, what led up to that? What was the how we were taught and led to disunity? So what did I contribute, or what can I contribute to make it different the next time around? And so learn the lessons, and then after you learn the lessons, experience gratitude. It is always something to be thankful for, because without the gratitude, the future can be bleak. We can be like, oh man, there's no hope, there's nothing, but it's always something. You can look back, all of us can look back on these 13 months and look like, oh wow, I got to know my wife better, or I got to know my daughter better, or I got to experience this, I learned French, or whatever it is, that you can find gratitude in something, and these things will help you to guide forward. But always choose hope. Always choose to believe that you have the ability to impact what happens moving forward.
Thank you. Our time is just about up here. And Ms. Pettifor said, allow children to communicate without being judgmental. Charlene said, we're going to live one day at a time, and we have to live and learn. And don't forget to pray. Well, if can you think of just one word that you might want to share as we close out? Just one word. Malvolia, we'll start with you. Go.
I have to ditto Reverend Durham, hope.
Okay. Miss Oni?
Sorry, I was struggling to turn on my mic. Creativity, that's my word.
I'm sorry.
Yeah, super big on being creative. I'm a creative. Can you hear me?
Okay, go ahead.
I said creativity.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Minister Durham?
Faith.
Okay. Mr. Adams?
Live.
Okay. And Yvonne Pettifor said faith. All right. One thing about it is that we are a residual group of people. And no matter how bad the situation looks, we will get through this.
Yes.
And once we get through this period, things will be better. And guess what? So will we. This has been a learning process for all of us. Well, I really do appreciate everybody for coming in. Thank you. You all have just been tremendous. I see love on the chat screen. Folks are saying thank you. Just great conversation. It has been wonderful. And in closing, we have Mr. Neville Adams, who happens to be one of the top spoken word poets in Prince George's County. And I'm going to ask him if he would just close us out in his own way.
Movement is more than a word or a notion, for the poisons in the blood and the movement's the potion. It's an antidote for a curse passed through generations. It's the call to arms needed to cure the ills of a nation. It's the change to initiate a blank mind's elevation. We must save those who seek the keys to salvation. Compromise not what we believe, for what we say is what is meant. Those who want to fight for freedom must do more than merely vent. Edutainment for the movement so the masses understand. Movement poets, grab your mic. Let the world hear your plans. Let the earth hear your cries. For justice not given is justice due. No longer living dormant, at least to thine own self be true. A testimony, a truth to power is what we must speak. It's the sound blast for the downtrodden, for the broken, the weak.
A truth to power. Well, thank you all for joining us, and we'll see you again actually on next Tuesday as we move into closing Women History Month. We're going to have a panel come on next Tuesday, the 23rd, and the topic is going to be women in ministry. So join us then. Thank you, panelists. You all have been great, and we'll see you again the next time. And as my mom would say, bye-bye.